Borag Thung, Earthlet. I'm Jason, and I'm here with my good friend Gerard, and welcome to another installment of Mayday Mondays. Today we're going to be talking about issue 7 of Spider-Girl.
If we don't overload on thrill power, those are from your intro.
Well, I keep trying to come up with something good, and I can't, so I'm just going to rip off Tharg the Mighty.
For those that listening who are wondering why we're making all these weird references in the Spider-Girl podcast, we're both big 2000 AD fans. We should probably explain that Tharg the Mighty is a rather mythical figure in 2000 AD lore. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and Borag Thung Earthlet means greetings, human.
Ah, yes. There you go. So write that down, kids. It'll be on the test. Like he said, we're covering issue number 7 of Spider-Girl in this episode, and you know what? Let's just go right for it. Jason, you have the recap.
Thank you. Quick note, it's kind of like an issue and a half, because there's a small backup story to this issue.
Actually, I wouldn't even say that, because the main story is actually shorter than normal, right?
Yeah, it's yeah. I'm trying to think. I think it's 6 pages shorter than normal, because the backup story is 6 pages. Right,
so it does still come out to being the same length.
So, issue 7, Stan Lee presents Secrets, written by Tom DeFalco, penciled by Pat Olive. So, at the start, Darkdevil is being a jerk. Big surprise. He's throwing his flaming billy club at May while taunting her. She manages to land a punch, but he phases, kind of like Kitty Pryde, before disappearing, and continuing to mock her. He's not a character I'm going to like for a while.
I don't blame you either.
Back at the Parker house, May tries to talk to Peter, but he brushes her off for work. And Mary Jane says that while she's tried to talk to Peter, he's not really willing to listen. At school, Jimmy tries to ask May out again, but with her either not realizing it or shooting him down, it's not really clear which one she's doing. Maybe it's a bit of both. Moose continues in his torment of Jimmy, making fun of her, and they decide to finally have a fight. May goes through the rest of the day at school, taking a short break to train with Phil, and going to Jimmy to make sure he isn't going to fight Moose, and he assures her that he's not. After basketball practice, she overhears that Jimmy and Moose are actually going to fight. Uh-oh, looks like someone wasn't telling the truth. May throws on her patented ski mask, because, as we remember from last issue, she doesn't have her Spider-Girl uniform right now, and jumps over the rooftops to try and get there on time. When Dark Jackass shows up, to belittle her again. May actually lands a real punch this time, knocking Daredevil out. Just as Nova flies by. Sorry, Darkdevil. I'm going to keep doing that. Darkdevil. Sorry. Just as Nova flies by. Nova, this issue, and I think it's like issue 17, is why I hated Nova for years. Nova thinks May is a ne'er-do-weller, and he tries to take her down. May mostly dodges, because Nova's been a superhero for years and has way more experience than her. Using her spider sense, May manages to avoid Nova, eventually escape his vision, and hides. Meanwhile, Moose and Jimmy have started their fight, and everyone is betting on Moose, but Jimmy manages a lucky hit and lands right in Moose's Adam's apple, which puts him in the hospital.
Yeah, and I hurt reading that.
I've been hitting the Adam's apple before. It's not pleasant.
No, it isn't.
So anyway, May escapes Nova, only to have Darkdevil chew her out again. May then arrives at the hospital. Apparently it was really close. Moose is going to be okay, though. Jimmy's really upset, and May starts wondering about her responsibility and place in the world. And it's not really mentioned in this issue, but the Jimmy-Moose fight will have repercussions next issue.
Indeed it will. So, nice recap on that one, except you messed something up, Jason.
Yeah, Darkdevil, I'm sorry.
No. Early on, when she throws a punch, he doesn't phase like Kitty Pryde, like you mentioned. It's actually like a fake Darkdevil. Like he created a construct out of flame. It's basically like a hologram kind of thing.
Oh, so he's got the powers of Ghost Rider and Green Lantern. Okay.
Because she punches through it, and then he's, like, on a different part of the roof, like, yelling at her, like, ha ha ha.
Okay, see, I thought he, like, phased and teleported.
No, he didn't do that. He even the dialogue here, it says, "Did my flaming construct startle you, child? I can be such a devil at times." Which is the sort of thing that just makes you want to hit him in the face, isn't it?
Yes.
My very first note here, I don't have many on this first main story, but I gotta say, my first note here, it says, the plot basically boils down to, Darkdevil and Nova are dicks.
I had similar notes.
That's basically what the plot is, just them being jerks.
Yeah, no, between this and, again, it was issue 17, the Wasp replacement in A-Next, I think it's Stinger. Oh, come on, that's what it is. Oh,
yeah, I'm not even arguing with that.
They're hanging out, and then Nova shows up to be a dick. Like, that caused me to hate Nova for, like, years, which is probably why I didn't read Annihilation when it first came out. I just finished reading. It's actually a great story. But even then, I'm like, Nova, you suck.
I know it's not issue 17, because that's the one where Peter becomes Spider-Man again. Again, don't put me on the spot for issue numbers, because I can never remember.
Anyway, screw those guys. They're stupid faces.
See, at this point, they've established Darkdevil as kind of a, what's the best way to put it?
Douchebag?
No, I want to say he's incredibly sarcastic, and, like, is kind of a snarky kind of hero.
Okay, but you can be snarky and endearing.
Right.
And in this issue, he's not. He's just a dick.
See, he's being snarky and stuff, but, like, you're like, okay, that's his character. Nova just basically just flies in and starts, like, taking swings at her. Like, and it's worth pointing out, Nova is, like, a cosmic level hero.
Right.
And he's basically picking on, like, a cat burglar, as far as he knows.
I mean, he's a Centurion, which means he can, get, like, 75% of the whole Nova force in him?
I just, like, it's like shooting a fly with a bazooka. Like, what the hell is he doing? What is his goal exactly?
Shooting a fly with a cosmic bazooka. Powered by the sun.
My goodness, like, he just basically just flies in and is like, okay, time to destroy something, because I haven't killed anyone in a while. I don't know what his motivation is. His appearance in this issue is very strange. It would have made more sense if he never showed up and it was just Darkdevil being a jerk. But, you know what? This issue is called Secrets. It really should just be called Jerks.
Yeah.
Because you have them being jerks, but then you have Jimmy and Moose, like, finally colliding in the slobber knocker we've been expecting for multiple issues now, because they've really been teasing the fact that these guys want to fight.
It's not really so much teasing as much as stating loudly.
Right, they're like, oh, they're going to fight at some point.
But you know what? The first time I read this issue, I was kind of like, yeah, go Jimmy. Just because I...
Well, you identify with him because he's the nerd.
Yes, and Jocks did that same thing to me when I was in high school. So,
right.
I mean, Moose kind of had it coming. I mean, he's the one who insisted on beating the crap out of the skinny foreign kid.
Right. But then Jimmy just lands...
Lucky punch?
You can say a lucky punch, but it's a damn near unlucky punch, because he almost kills Moose by blocking his windpipe. Well, this would be a very different series
if Jimmy was either Rambo or Judge Dredd.
Well, no, if he was Judge Dredd, he would have punched Moose through, and his fist would have come out the other side of his neck.
No, that's Frank Castle.
Oh, God. Now you're reminding me of that terrible Punisher Warzone movie.
No, because in the movie Dredd, the guy says choke on it, and Dredd goes choke on this, picks up the butt of the gun and hits the Adam's apple so it caves in. Right.
But you're talking about punching through people, and now I'm thinking of when in Punisher Warzone,
he punches the guy in the face, and it's the greatest thing ever.
And basically his head explodes. I'm like, okay. I didn't at that point. I had already checked out of the movie, but that was the official point where I'm just like, okay, this movie's just garbage.
Really, that's where I was like, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, we have very different opinions of that. But again, now we're talking... The last episode is 90s X-Men. This episode is talking about... we gotta stay on topic.
Hilariously violent vigilantes.
This issue with its 2 stories. Now, I'm sitting here thinking about, there are a lot of similarities between this and Amazing Spider-Man number 8. We've made a lot of comparisons between Spider-Girl and the early era of Spider-Man and how it's more or less an intentional attempt to recapture the spirit and the style of those issues. But this one really is incredibly similar to ASM number 8 in a couple of ways. Number one, it has 2 stories in it, which in and of itself is kind of weird. It also has a fight between a nerd and a jock that picks on him that ends with the nerd winning in a way that people aren't okay with. Because in ASM number 8, that's the one where Peter and Flash Thompson get in the boxing ring, and Peter flattens Flash because Flash got distracted by the living brain. Or I can't even remember if it was the living brain, but something distracts Flash, and he turns his head, and Peter just socks him because he can't stop his fist fast enough, and he knocks him out. Very, very similar tonally to what happens in this issue with Moose and Jimmy, where Jimmy hits Moose, and everybody's like, oh my god, why did you have to do that, you know? I just found that a very interesting parallel, especially since even the issue numbers are close. I mean, this is Spider-Girl number 7, that was ASM number 8. Of course, maybe I'm just Rain Man, and I'm putting things together that don't fit together, but...
I think that's about right. There's early parallels. There's also major differences. I mean, you know, her parents aren't trying to force feed her wheat cakes and set her up with the boy next door.
Well, Peter definitely wouldn't be trying to set her up with anybody, because he shoots death daggers out of his eyes at any young man that dares look at his door. And Mary Jane has a very interesting philosophy on boyfriends, as we find out in The Amazing Spider-Girl later. What was that quote she had? She says, she tells May something like, oh, you don't have to look for Mr. Right. It's okay to look for Mr. Right now. And I'm like, that's weird advice from your mom. She's basically like, yeah, you could test the waters a little bit. I'm like, okay. There's a weird, I don't know if you caught this or not, but there's a weird sequence of a couple of pages in this issue. It's when May goes to train with Phil and then goes back to school. They repeat the same panel layout 3 times, where it's a shot, it's like a full body shot of May walking on the left side, and the right side is it's like a close-up of someone's shin and shoe as they're walking away.
Yeah, it's Phil Urich's shoe.
Right, but it's repeated 3 times, because on the next page, it's Phil again, on the top panel, but then on the bottom panel, it's just some random student walking around.
Yeah? Yeah. Really? Really? I can't believe that. Oy vey.
It's really bizarre because it's only on those 2 pages. I get the first 2 because it's actually a pretty clever time cut to show him walking away from it and they're both leaving the warehouse at the same time. And I have no idea where the third use of it comes from because it doesn't really fit at all. It's also jarring that you then have 2 of those panels on the same exact page. It's a weird note, I know, but it's just something that jumped out at me as being a little strange, because when elements like that appear in your story, they almost call attention to themselves, much like the Bendis thing you're making fun of, where you repeat some panels and stuff like that. It's always jarring to me when I see things like that. You have any notes on this one?
The nerds win, but at great cost, because he's going to end up in court next issue, and yeah, screw Daredevil. I did it again. Screw Darkdevil and Nova. Those guys are dick.
The main story to me, I don't know. I was entertained by it, but I thought it was the weaker aspect. I actually like the backup story a lot more.
Actually, so do I.
So let's get into that, because I want to talk about that backup story. So you can recap that right now.
Okay, so this is called The Last Days of Spider-Man. Again, written by Tom DeFalco and penciled by Pat Olive. And this is kind of funny, blast from the past. Editor-in-chief is Bob Harris.
Or as you like to call him, Bob Harass.
Yes. May is looking through the trunk in the attic when Mary Jane comes up and catches her. MJ decides to explain to her daughter why Peter is so opposed to May being Spider-Girl. And we start getting a flashback. MJ goes over Peter's origins and the murder of Uncle Ben, and we get a picture of Spider-Man punching the burglar in the face. No, okay, the exact quote's not in here, but basically she learns about, with great power comes great responsibility. So fast forward a few years, and Peter has decided to give up being Spider-Man, or at least chill out of it a bit, once Mary Jane becomes pregnant. Spectacular Spider-Man 221, fellow continuity whores. In this continuity, though, May does get born, and as we all know, fast forward again, and this is kind of, it's interesting. This is something that kind of keeps popping up throughout the series. Peter's final battle with Norman Osborn, which I think in this version was like a slightly different version of the Gathering of the Five. Anyway, in this fight, we don't really see how it pans out, but Norman loses his life, and Peter ends up losing his right leg, just above the knee. Mary Jane rushes to the FF headquarters where Mr. Fantastic has just finished operating on Peter, and informs Peter that he can make him a new bionic leg that will be able to mimic his powers. Mary Jane helps Peter with his rehabilitations. We see him on crutches and playing with Baby May. Mary Jane gets a phone call saying that Reed Richards called, telling him to stop work on the bionic leg. And Peter tells her that he doesn't need it because he's finally decided to retire being Spider-Man and focus on his responsibilities, which is his wife and his new daughter. The issue ends with Mary Jane giving May back her costume and telling her to do the right thing. That's it at the end.
Yeah, and what a wonderful backup it is, because I got some things to say about that.
I actually my note that I have the backup's better than the main story.
Yeah, me too. I really like this backup for a few reasons. For one thing, I always love when Mary Jane gets some time to focus time in this book. I know she is a supporting character, but again, being my favorite supporting character in comics, I just love when she shows up and gets to talk for a while. There's some interesting things in her version of events. I'll say that. She really glosses over what was going on at the time she became pregnant.
Probably because that involves 2 years of cluster bleeps.
Right. But it always bugs me. Whenever they talk about the battle between him and the Goblin in these early issues, they never quite ever tell you what happened. And it always drove me crazy, because they basically, it's almost like a smash cut in her version of events. Like, she battled the Green Goblin, then something happened, and then it's like, oh, that's almost like the hidden backstory of this entire series. And we get so close to getting it sometimes, but we just never get it. Not until much, 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 much later. I don't know, maybe I'm alone on this one.
No, I agree. It always drove me crazy that we didn't find out. We do find out eventually, but, well, yeah, because, I mean, the main characters may, but we still love Peter and Mary Jane, you know, and those are two characters we've known for much longer, and I probably wouldn't have picked this, you know, I probably would not have picked Spider-Girl if I wasn't already a huge Spider-Man fan.
Right. And then, this is the thing that makes me scratch my head. We need to have a discussion about this. So she's talking about how Reed was making him a bionic leg, right?
Right.
And then Peter was, like, you know, rehabbing like you normally would.
Mm-hmm.
And then she finds out that he told Reed to stop making the bionic leg because he wants to quit being Spider-Man and finally devote his life to his family, right?
Mm-hmm.
But why are these things mutually exclusive? I'm not talking about the Spider-Man part. I'm talking about the bionic leg and being with your family part. Couldn't Reed make him a bionic leg and he not be Spider-Man at the same time?
The way I saw that is that the bionic leg would have led to too much, basically a temptation to go back to being Spider-Man.
That's a good way to look at it, but at the same time, I mean, he clearly has more temptations to come back to being Spider-Man because he does it so many times.
Right.
Even before the bionic leg.
Right, but he does even more after he gets the bionic leg back.
Right.
I mean, it's not a perfect explanation, but it's what I've got, and it's the best, basically the best thing I could come up with. So that's kind of how I always viewed it.
Right. But to me, it almost seems like he's intentionally handicapping himself in a way. Because he doesn't want to take care of his family, but at the same time, it would help him if he had that bionic leg. But then again, perhaps he thought that having just an ordinary citizen having a super advanced bionic leg might raise a few eyebrows.
Yeah, especially since he's working for the police now.
Right. That would be a little strange if it's like, oh, hey Peter, I notice you're walking around again perfectly fine. It's like, oh yeah, I have a bionic leg built by Reed Richards. It's like, how the hell did you get that?
Obamacare. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. I'm not trying to be political. That really was just a joke.
Yeah, it's a joke. It's a joke. Please.
We're going to get a bunch of angry letters from people all over the spectrum. How can you support Obamacare? How can you be against Obamacare?
This is the point where I just sit back and say, thank goodness Zach's not here. This will be a 20-minute...
at me.
This will be a 20-minute conversation. But yeah, oh my goodness, though, I love this backup story.
He's going to be screaming at this part when he listens to this episode.
What else do you want to talk about with this backup?
I mean, it's not really much to talk about because it's only 6 pages, but no, it's
right.
really good. For some reason, I really like the image of Mary Jane helping Peter with the exercises. It's because, I always like stuff with just them doing things together. Like
right.
the main, like in the main books, I always like that.
Something that jumps to mind immediately. There's a Bagley drawn issue. I don't remember what issue it was, where Peter is trying to. It's just like a little scene that has nothing really to do with the story, but he's trying to enhance his spider tracer, so he comes up with a new type of signal. And he basically has Mary Jane, like, hiding it somewhere for him and see if he can find it or something like that. And he's like, alright, turn it on and, like, I'll see if I can find it. Like, I always find things like that cute, because it's a good way to have them do things together while still tying it together to Spider-Man stuff.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
But this backup story, this is the thing I was trying to remember, it really nails Peter as a character, even though he doesn't actually say anything in this story. Because you're getting it all from Mary Jane's point of view.
Right.
But it's basically the entire allegory of, with great power, there must also come great responsibility, brought to its logical conclusion. Where the end of Spider-Man is essentially that as an expression, rather than, usually that's what draws him back into being Spider-Man, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, whenever he quits being Spider-Man, it's like, oh, stop being irresponsible and go back to do what you're supposed to do. But this is the reverse, which is quitting Spider-Man is the responsible thing to do.
Right. Take care of his wife and his child.
Right.
And it's, Tom DeFalco, I think, said something about, I want to say, I kind of hate to bring this up, but I think it was, like, after the OMD. No, it was after Tom Brevoort had put that Spider-Man manifesto.
Right.
And he said, I don't remember the entire thing, but Brevoort basically said that Spider-Man was all about youth, and someone was asking Tom DeFalco what he thought about it, and I know I'm paraphrasing, but the gist of what DeFalco said was, well, he's the editor and he's allowed to make that call. When I was the editor, I thought the main theme was responsibility, and for me, the more responsibility you give Peter, the more interesting he becomes. And I agree with that. Like, I totally side with DeFalco there.
In a way, they're both right, because ultimately the editors are the ones who get to decide. But in another more accurate way, DeFalco is the one that's right. Because it is, the overarching theme of Spider-Man has always been responsibility. And seeing how that played out in this backstory, and also how it ties together to what's been going on in the main story, which is important to point out, because a lot of the times backup stories have nothing to do with anything, they're just page fillers.
Mm-hmm.
The 90s run of Spider-Man was famous for this, where they would have all sorts of stupid backstories about, like, Cardiac and Solo and all these stupid-ass characters.
And then they would end with Peter at Gwen Stacy's grave.
Right. Every backup story ended with Peter at Gwen Stacy's grave. And, like, these backup stories had nothing to do with anything. By the way, I just have to say, in this issue, it's a subtle thing. But Pat Olive does a really good job of drawing Mary Jane in different eras. Did you notice that her hair looks much different in the flashback scenes?
Yes.
It's shaded differently.
Well, and there's a couple different, like when she's pregnant, it almost looks more like. Remember when in the 90s she had the poofy hair?
Right. It was all like
bigger hair.
Right.
Yeah, and then
she looked like she was a walking Pantene commercial, I always used to say.
Right, and then you've got, like, I guess late 90s where she's got kind of went back to her regular hair.
Right.
And then
like straight where it was straight.
Right. And then you've got the ponytail look,
mm-hmm.
which is from the non-existent era of comic books.
Well, it's just right. And then ponytail. This is an extension of the late 90s.
Yes.
But the thing is, it's shaded differently, so it's like a clever way to make her look a lot different without really changing much about her face. Because the thing about the way they draw Mary Jane in these comics is they don't visibly age her all that much. She pretty much looks like she just walked out of a modern...
She is aged very gracefully, which
whereas
I think...
Peter looks aged. Visibly aged. Like, they draw him sometimes with, like, some wrinkles around his eyes and the grayed section of his hair.
But you know what else? Mary Jane hasn't gone through the traumatic experience of fighting for your life and having your right leg blown off. I mean, stuff like that ages people.
But Peter also hasn't gone through the traumatic experience of childbirth.
This is true, but I'd like to think that Mary Jane is someone who would age gracefully.
Right, that's true. That's true. So, you got anything else about this one?
No, but I'd give it an A+ for grade.
But here's the thing, though. How did you grade the overall issue?
Well, there's two different stories. I'd give I'd give a B to the main story and an A to the backup.
I think I would give A's to both. And here's why. The first story isn't great, but it ends up being really funny. Just because of how big of a jerk Darkdevil and Nova are being in the story. I find it very amusing for some reason. Like, yeah, they're basically just jerking our hero, our heroine around, but there's something very comical about that. I don't know. I'm assuming that was the intention, and that it wasn't just supposed to make us hate Nova and Darkdevil, although that was, in your case, that's what happened. You just ended up hating Nova quite a bit.
Yep.
The man called Nova, as he always calls himself. Very dramatically, he always refers to himself.
I got over my Nova hatred by the time Guardians of the Galaxy came out.
I have to talk about the cover of this issue. It's Nova flying at Spider-Girl, who's in costume, by the way, which to dust off an old chest. Yeah, to dust off an old chest note of mine that Zach loves. This cover is a pack of lies. But like, and Darkdevil is like knocked out on the ground again, where this scene didn't happen. But as Nova's flying by, he says, "You may have found a way to defeat Darkdevil, young Missy, but you'll never beat the man called Nova." And Spider-Girl's thought bubble says, "Young Missy? What a jerk!" That sums up the issue perfectly.
Yeah. That's kind of sexist, isn't it?
Young Missy. I love that. Young Missy. Was he from the 1920s?
Maybe he's been hanging out with Reed Richards.
Spider-Girls are made to be seen, not heard.
He's going to have J2 spank her.
Oh my god. Please. Don't give people that commission artwork ideas, please.
Context to those who think we're just being pervs. No, there's an old issue of FF where the Thing spanks Invisible Woman with...
No, he doesn't spank her.
He reads permission. I don't remember why.
He does line up for it, but he doesn't actually do it. Presumably because of the comics code. Otherwise, he probably would have smacked that ass. If this was a modern comic, it would have been a splash page. So I think that about does it, doesn't it?
I think so.
A really, really fun issue. This is one of my favorites so far, actually. I didn't think it would be when I started reading it, because, I mean, I sat down to plan these recordings and stuff, and I sat down for this one, I'm like, oh, it's just some issue where she fights Darkdevil and Nova. I didn't even remember it offhand. And then I went back and read it, and I'm like, this is almost stupidly entertaining. So, yeah, this is one of the ones to track down, if you can only track down a few.
Definitely.
So, until next time, make mine Mayday.
Splundig Verthrig Earthlets. I'm sorry, make mine Mayday. Bye, folks. My favorite part of the night Gwen Stacy died is the part where Gwen Stacy dies.
Oh my god. That's... wow.
Getting edited out, I know.
But see, but was it as hilarious as the way Gwen Stacy died in The Amazing Spider-Man 2? That's the important question.
I don't know. I haven't seen the movie.
I was actually like pissing myself laughing while watching it because it's like the funniest thing ever. There it goes. See, the magic of editing.
Earlier this month.
Don't say things like earlier this month when we're doing, because you never know how long it'll take me to edit this. Oh yeah, that reminds me. I have to talk about the cover.
Do you want me to
issue.
do what the comics to say and go all those months ago?
Many months. Oh my god. You didn't read that issue, but during Brand New Day.
No, I read the issue with the Something Can Stop the Juggernaut.
Yeah, where he's like, months ago when I first saw the Juggernaut, I'm like, oh no, here comes the continuity cluster F everyone was worried about. There it is.
And then the Juggernaut looks over and he sees the destruction that he caused from the story in the 80s. Oh, that was fun.
I thought for a second you were transitioning into making fun of Civil War. I'm like, that's a non sequitur. He turned around and saw the destruction he caused and started crying.
Yes.
And let the fireman grab him. Thanks a lot, Millar. Well, actually, Millar didn't come up with that ending. Joss Whedon did. Just another reason for me to hate Joss Whedon, I guess. But that's all, folks.